Asterisk the wind came sharp off the Big Horn Mountains, carrying the bite of snow and the grit of dust, rattling the false fronts of the stores in Sheridan like loose bones. Catherine Hale stood outside the dry goods store, her shawl pulled close around her shoulders, her empty basket hanging from her arm. She kept her chin level though her stomach twisted in protest, sharp with hunger. Inside, the shopkeeper's voice carried loud enough for all the street to hear. I said no credit. His back was already turned as though her need had never been worth a second look. Catherine pressed her lips together and stepped down off the porch, her eyes watering from the wind but not from the tears she refused to let fall. Not here, not in front of neighbors or strangers. Her son hadn't had more than half a biscuit since dawn, and she herself had gone without altogether since yesterday. But she would not beg, she would not give them that satisfaction. The hem of her dress dragged against the dirt road, kicking up little bursts of dust, and she focused on each step as though the act of walking might steady her heart. Asterisk a man stood by the livery across the way, one shoulder against a post, arms crossed, hat tugged low over his brow. He was dressed plain, worn coat, boots scuffed with long travel, but his stance was steady, solid in a way that made him seem more rooted than the buildings around him. He watched her without pretense, not rudely, not hiding it. His voice, when it came, was low and steady. You got turned away for food. Asterisk Catherine stopped, stiffened slightly, then gave a short nod. I will manage, she said, her eyes darting toward the wagon she had left at the edge of town. I'll figure something out. Asterisk the man pushed away from the post with quiet ease. He came closer, boots crunching in the dirt, stopping within speaking distance. Come with me, he said, simple as if they had already struck a bargain. I'll see your table filled tonight. Asterisk she hesitated, fingers tightening around the basket handle until her knuckles whitened. You don't even know me. Asterisk he met her gaze, calm and unwavering. I don't need to. You've got a child to feed. That's reason enough. Asterisk her throat closed and she looked down at the ground between them. I cannot take charity. Asterisk it isn't charity, he said. It's supper. Come on. Asterisk something in his tone steady and hurried, like a man stating the hour of the day eased, the tightness in her chest. She looked up at him then, truly looked, and noticed the kindness in his eyes, the faint crease at the corner of his mouth that spoke of a smile once familiar, long forgotten. He was not young, but not old either, somewhere in his 30s. He carried himself like a man who had been tested hard and come through without breaking. She found herself nodding. Asterisk he returned it with the smallest dip of his chin, then led the way across the street to where a horse stood hitched beside a buckboard wagon. It was a plain rig, muddy from the road, but sturdy. Name's Thelis Whitlow, he said, gathering the reins. You can ride up front or follow behind. Asterisk Catherine Hale, she answered quietly as she climbed into the wagon. My son's waiting at our place, just outside town by the creek. Asterisk Thelis flicked the reins and the horse set into motion. Then that's where we'll go. Asterisk the ride out was quiet, but not the strained silence of strangers. It was the kind of quiet that left space to breathe, space for the clop of hooves and the creak of the wagon to fill. Catherine kept her eyes on his hands, strong and weathered on the leather reins, steady as stone. She had not been in the company of such steadiness for a long time. The sun slipped lower, spilling gold across the rolling hills. Asterisk they turned down the creek road and her small homestead came into view. The cabin sagged a little with years, its roof patched with tar paper and whatever else she could find. On the porch a barefoot boy stood watching, thin but alert. Asterisk that your boy? Thelis asked. Asterisk yes. His name is Micah. He's 7. Asterisk looked sharp. Thelis said. Asterisk. The wagon halted and Catherine climbed down. Micah ran straight into her arms and she lifted him, breathing him in, his ribs sharp beneath her hands. We've a guest, she said softly. He's going to help us tonight. Asterisk Micah peered up at Thelis with wide, cautious eyes. You've got food. Asterisk a small smile curved at Thelis's mouth. I've got more than that. You like rabbit stew? Asterisk Micah nodded quickly. I do. Asterisk from the back of the wagon Thelis unloaded his supply: salt pork, beans, potatoes, flour, even a good cut of venison wrapped tight in cloth. Catherine's breath caught at the sight. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, he said simply, let's cook. Asterisk inside the cabin. The fire caught, and the kitchen warmed. Catherine stirred flour and water into biscuits while Thelis chopped vegetables with the easy motions of a man who had done so many times before. Micah sat at the table, eyes wide with the smells of roasting meat. Asterisk you cook like a ranch wife, Catherine said, watching Thelis work. Asterisk I was raised on one, he said. Ma died when I was 16. Learned what I had to. Asterisk she nodded, stirring the pot. Asterisk your husband? He asked gently. Asterisk gone to winter's past. Fever, she said simply, without looking at him. Asterisk he didn't press. Instead he focused on the stew, and she was grateful. It was enough that she still stood, and that Micah still breathed. That was story enough. Asterisk the meal filled the cabin with warmth and laughter Micah hadn't made in weeks. Afterward, Thelis helped clear the table, then stepped outside while Catherine tucked her son into bed. When she returned, he stood on the porch rail, looking out at the stars. Asterisk, thank you, she said softly. Asterisk, he looked at her. Anytime. Asterisk, you didn't have to. Asterisk, I wanted to. He interrupted, tone quiet but firm. Asterisk, she stepped closer. You're kind. Asterisk, he shrugged. Don't know about that. Asterisk, you are, she said, voice steadier now. It's been a long time since anyone's shown us kindness. Asterisk, he turned, eyes catching the moonlight. Doesn't have to be the last time. Asterisk, her breath caught. You mean that? Asterisk, I do. Asterisk, I do. Asterisk, they stood a long while, the wind brushing through the trees, the boards creaking under their boots. Will you come back tomorrow? She asked. Asterisk, I will. He answered without pause. Asterisk, her smile came unbidden, full and real. Good. Asterisk, he tipped his hat. Good night, Catherine. Asterisk, good night. Fellas. Asterisk, he walked to his wagon and turned back only once before the bend. Seeing her still on the porch, waiting. Asterisk, morning brought frost feathering the windowpane. Catherine lit the fire quietly, oats simmering as Micah slept on. Outside, she stepped into the biting air, her shawl pulled tight. Hoofprints marked the lane from the night before, a letter left unread, carrying more hope than she dared to name. Asterisk, by mid-morning, the sound of hooves came again, steady on her. Catherine wiped her hands on her apron, heart full but calm. Fellas rode in, his coat buttoned high, collar turned against the wind. He dismounted, tied the reins, and met her gaze like a question already answered. Asterisk, you found your way? She asked. Asterisk, roads, rough past the creek, he said, but the horse didn't mind. Asterisk, she stepped aside. Come in, unless you're in a rush. Asterisk, no rush, he said, removing his hat at the hearth. Asterisk, Micah watched him from the corner, wary but curious. Asterisk, you remember Mr. Whitlow? Catherine asked. Asterisk, yes ma'am, Micah said. Asterisk, morning sun, Fella said. You help your mama with chores. Asterisk, Micah straightened. I carry wood, feed the hens. Asterisk, that's good work. Cabin this size won't run itself, Fella said, voice plain. Not patronizing. Asterisk, there's fence down out back, Catherine added. Dear got through. Asterisk, I'll mend it, if you've spare wire, he offered, shrugging off his coat. Asterisk, she blinked at how natural it felt. There's some under the lean-to. Asterisk, he nodded and stepped out, moving with a surety that made her chest ease. Asterisk, by midday the fence stood straight again. He came in with dirt on his boots and a scrape on his arm, silent about it. Catherine handed him a plate of biscuits and ham saved from the night before. Asterisk, you've a good piece of land, he said between bites. Water runs clear. Trees for shelter. Asterisk, it was my husband's, she said. We came from Kansas 5 years back. He set the beams himself. Asterisk, Thellis fell quiet, turning the plate in his hands. I buried my mother near Laramie. She liked the wind there, said it kept her honest. Asterisk, you stayed there. Asterisk, a while. Drove cattle north. Helped on the rail. Never for long. Asterisk, you plan to stay now? She asked. Asterisk, he met her eyes, steady. Any reason I shouldn't? Asterisk, no reason at all, she said softly. Asterisk, he stood, brushing his hands. I'll ride to town. Bring nails, salt, anything else? Asterisk, she hesitated. Glass, if you find it. Back pain's cracking. Asterisk, I'll keep an eye. Asterisk, she walked him out. The wind tugged at her shawl. Asterisk, you don't owe us anything, she said. Asterisk, I know. That's not why I'm coming back. Asterisk, her hand lifted almost of its own accord, brushing dust from his coat collar. Then I'll be here. Asterisk, he tipped his head once, mounted and rode toward the bend. She watched him go until the creek hid him from sight. Asterisk, inside, Micah came grinning with a feather in hand. I think he likes it here, he said. Asterisk, Catherine smiled, smoothing her thread. I think he might. Asterisk, the wagon wheels cracked thin ice in the ruts when Thellis came back that afternoon. His coat dusted with salt from the road, his cheeks raw from wind. Catherine was at the chicken coop when she heard the horse. She wiped her hands on her skirt, breath puffing in the air, and stepped toward him. He lifted a crate from the back of the wagon, wood damp but solid. Found the glass, he said. Traded a pair of stirrups for it. Fellow at Smith's owed me from a saddle I fixed last year. Asterisk, she held the crate carefully. Reverend, I'll keep it wrapped till spring. No sense setting pains while the ground's frozen. Asterisk, I brought oilcloth too, he said. Keep the drafts out till then. Asterisk, Micah opened the cabin door, his hair sticking up every which way. I finished the kindling. A lot this time. Asterisk, you haul it yourself? Fellas asked. Asterisk, dragged it in a sack, but it kept snagging, Micah admitted. Asterisk, next time twist the top and tie it off, Fella said. Stops it catching. Asterisk, Micah blinked, nodded, and darted back inside. Asterisk, Catherine lingered on the porch. You teach children often? Asterisk, not often, he said, hanging back a moment. But I remember what I was like then. Might have listened if someone spoke plain. Asterisk, she leaned lightly against the doorframe. You do speak plain. Asterisk, only way I know, he replied. Asterisk, a coil of her hair slipped loose in the wind, brushed across her cheek. She tucked it back. You work with leather. Asterisk when it's needed. Used to ride dispatch for the stage line near Rawlins. Saddle straps wore fast. Had to mend what couldn't be replaced. Asterisk there's an old harness in the lintel. Been cracked near through. If you've got time, I can trade preserves for the work. Asterisk I'll look after supper, he said. Preserves or no. Asterisk you'll eat with us again. Asterisk he set his hat on the hook without another word. Asterisk. That night the stew was thinner, stretched with turnip and barley. But Micah ate 3 bowls and Thelis left nothing on his plate. After, Catherine took up her mending by the fire, and Thelis worked the harness across his knees. The silence wasn't the hush of strangers anymore, but the comfort of people who belonged in the same space. Asterisk. You ever think of settling for good? She asked after a while. Asterisk I did once, he said, north of Cheyenne. But the man who owned the land ran out of money and promises, sold it out from under me. Asterisk she didn't comment. Trust, she had learned, grew best in the quiet. Asterisk this land's in Micah's name, she said, setting her needle. No bank can touch it. His father had sense about some things. Asterisk Thelis nodded but asked no more. The fire snapped, wind pressed against the walls. Asterisk you sleep in town? She asked. Asterisk room above the livery. Dry enough, though the boards creak. Asterisk there's a cot here. If the drive back's too long, she offered. Still sewing. Asterisk I wouldn't want to impose. Asterisk you wouldn't be. Asterisk. The silence stretched. Warm. At last he said, I'll stay then. Asterisk there are blankets in the trunk, she told him. Asterisk he tested the leather strap in his hand. I'll fix the buckle tomorrow. Asterisk that would be good. Asterisk Micah stirred in his sleep. Catherine banked the fire, pausing beside the cot. I trust you, she said quietly. Asterisk his eyes met hers. You've reason too. Asterisk she nodded. We touched his hand once, then turned away. Asterisk by week's end. The harness was sound, the oilcloth nailed over the cracked pane, and Catherine no longer started when she heard boots on the porch. She knew the weight of his step. She always opened the door before he had to wonder. Asterisk snow came heavy on Friday, trailing white out of the northern sky. Catherine stood on the stoop, basin cooling at her feet, shawl tight. Thelis rounded the cabin, his shoulders damp with melt, a bundle of kindling in his arms. Asterisk you'll catch cold, she said. Asterisk I've had worse from mountain springs. This is soft weather. Asterisk you speak like you've known a lot of places. Asterisk enough to know the wind's voice is different in each one. Asterisk they went inside together. Micah was building towers from wooden spools near the hearth, his fingers red from the cold. Catherine reached for a log while Thelis crouched beside the boy. Asterisk you ever see a snowshoe rabbit? He asked. Asterisk Micah shook his head. Asterisk they turn white when snow sticks. Hard to spot unless you know where to look. Asterisk Micah's eyes widened. Do you ever catch one? Asterisk took near an hour once. They're clever. Asterisk Catherine stirred the pot. Think we'll be snowed in. Asterisk could be. Drifts are rising fast. Asterisk you planning to ride out in it? She asked. Asterisk I was going to. Asterisk no need, she said firmly. You can stay. Asterisk he hesitated. You sure? Asterisk I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't. Asterisk that night they ate by lamplight. Broth rich with dried sage she'd found hidden in a jar. After Micah slept, Thelis stretched by the fire, legs long, hands loose. Catherine folded laundry nearby, fingers slow. Asterisk you ever think about what comes next? She asked. Asterisk not in the way most do. I don't plan past sunrise. Keeps the ground steadier. Asterisk you ever want steadier than that? Asterisk maybe, he said after a moment. If it came quiet, didn't ask more than I had. Asterisk do you think you found that here? Asterisk the fire popped. Snow whispered against the window. I think I found something, he said, still learning its shape. Asterisk she moved closer, feeling his warmth. There's room here, for someone who works hard, keeps his word. Asterisk and for someone who's made mistakes, he asked softly. Asterisk we all have. What matters is what comes after. Asterisk he reached out, brushed his fingers against hers like easing open a door. She didn't pull away. Their shadows stretched across the floor while the storm buried the road. Inside, the quiet waited, no longer empty. Asterisk the storm held 2 days more, leaving the land blanketed in white. On Sunday morning, Catherine kneaded bread at the table, sleeves rolled, flour dusting her arms. Thelis split logs, stacking them neat. Micah carved a stick by the fire, tongue caught between his teeth. Asterisk you always this quiet when weather breaks? Thelis asked, brushing sawdust off. Asterisk I listen better when the world stops shouting, she said. Asterisk then you've listened a long time. Asterisk she shaped 2 lobes. You ever think of building again? Not a cabin, a life. Asterisk I've thought about it more this week than in years. Asterisk what stopped you before? Asterisk he looked toward the frosted window. Never found a place worth staying. Asterisk Micah lifted the carved stick. It's a bird now. Asterisk Thelis took it gently. You gave it wings. You did it right. Asterisk Catherine watched them, heart heavy but not with sorrow. He's taken to you. Asterisk I've never had cause to stay. Thela said. Would I see reason now? More than one. Asterisk, she stepped closer, smelling cedar smoke. There's room here, not just in the cabin. Asterisk, I'd like to stay, he said. Not for the night, for good. Asterisk, Micah glanced up at them, then back at his carving. Catherine's voice was steady. He's old enough to remember what it means when someone leaves. I won't promise him anything false. Asterisk, Thelas tightened his hand on hers. Then I promise him this. I'll be here. I'll work this land with you. No roads ever looked better than this one. Asterisk, tears rose, but she let them fall. Then stay. Be part of this. Asterisk, he pulled her gently into his arms. She leaned without hesitation, flowers still on her hair. Outside, the snow brightened under cold sun, the wind at rest. Asterisk, that spring. Thelas built a new coop with Micah, showing him how to square corners, how to feel a beam's strength. He mended fence posts, planted corn in long rows with Catherine, and found a rocking chair for the hearth. Asterisk, they married in June beneath the cottonwoods by the creek. The preacher came out from town. Catherine wore her mother's brooch. Micah stood solemn with the ring, crafted from a silver coin Thelas had carried since trail days. Afterward, they ate at a table. Thelas built, bread Catherine baked, jam Micah had helped preserve. There was no music, but they danced barefoot in the dirt, laughing under the open sky. Asterisk, by winter, the cabin wore a new roof, pantry shelves lined with jars, sacks stacked neat. Micah's cheeks were fuller, his shoulders straighter. He called Thelas Pa without being asked. Asterisk, at night, Catherine sat with Thelas on the porch, her hand tucked in his. They watched a land rest, sky spread wide. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. She understood him now the way one knows the grain of wood, or how the wind carries stories if you listen long enough. When he bent to kiss her temple, she closed her eyes, knowing this wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of all the rest.